Have you ever stopped to think about what a map actually means to a toddler? I mean, for us adults, it's about navigating highways or understanding continents, right? But for a 2-year-old, their map is literally just the fastest route from the play rug straight to the snack drawer. So it begs the question, how on earth do we teach geography when concepts like state borders mean absolutely nothing to them yet? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something super fascinating, how early childhood education completely shifts geography away from the abstract. It's honestly incredible to see how developmental research translates into simple, everyday tools that help young children map their world. So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll redefine early childhood geography. Second, we'll look at the developmental matrix. Third, we'll explore geography and learning centers. Fourth, we'll unpack 3 practical mapping tools. And finally, we'll discuss anti-bias equity in mapping. Let's jump right in. Section 1, Redefining Early Childhood Geography. This is where we see a real paradigm shift. Okay, let's look at this comparison. Forget the old myth of sitting at a desk memorizing state capitals or, identifying tectonic plates. That's abstract. True early childhood geography is so much more active. As the National Council for the Social Studies points out, it's about physical literacy. It's the active study of spaces, places, and learning to navigate the patterns, pathways, and boundaries right inside their immediate environment. At its very heart, early childhood geography is really just designed to answer one core, crucial question for a child. How do I fit into this space? For a preschooler, geography is all about recognizing familiar locations, figuring out spatial relationships, and feeling totally secure in how they navigate their day-to-day boundaries. It's fundamentally about connection. Moving on to Section 2, the developmental matrix, specifically looking at the ASELDS ST2B trajectory. Now, this kind of geographic awareness doesn't just magically happen overnight. It evolves. This strategy framework matrix is great because it takes our broad definition and anchors it to concrete, observable behaviors, aligning perfectly with the ASELDS ST2B guidelines for social studies. It essentially takes all that high-level theory and turns it into specific benchmarks we can actually observe, from infancy all the way up to preschool. Let's break this trajectory down a bit. For infants, we're looking at basic spatial orientation, literally just tracking a moving object or looking over toward their high chair. For toddlers, navigation starts to kick in. They begin using early directional words like up, down, and under to physically move around the room's boundaries. And by preschool, that's when we see mental mapping. They can start recognizing community landmarks and logos, or even use simple logic to figure out where a missing toy went. All right, Section 3, Geography in Learning Centers. This is all about how we guide geography without doing literal geography. The beauty here is that you absolutely do not need a dedicated geography time. You just weave it in organically. Take the dramatic play area, for example. Just by adding a simple mailbox and a grocery stand, you transform the room into a community. When kids pretend to deliver mail or visit the hospital, they are actively learning that communities are built of specific places that serve specific purposes. And watch how this naturally builds over in the block area. Toss in some toy vehicles and maybe a few street signs, and boom, suddenly they're constructing 3D neighborhoods. This play naturally supports spatial organization. They're grasping how places are laid out and how people actually move between them. Honestly, it extends everywhere. Over in the Discovery Center, you've got tactile exploration, feeling soil, rocks, and learning about natural landforms. The Literacy Center brings in picture books showing totally different environments so they learn that people live in a wide variety of places. And in art, kids can co-create simple, hand-drawn floor plans of the classroom itself. Literally every corner of the room is a geography lesson. Let's hit Section 4. 3 practical mapping tools. Think of these as your direct classroom blueprints. So here are 3 awesome interactive tools pulled right out of the geography toolkit. These are going to turn those abstract spatial concepts we've been talking about into real, hands-on activities that make your classroom feel like a navigable community. Let's look at each one. First up, and this is a classic, the Gingerbread Man Scavenger Hunt. After reading this story, you actually take the kids on a school-wide hunt for the runaway gingerbread man. But here's the trick. You give them a simple graphic checklist map of the building. Think about what this is doing. The children are actively tracking pathways and identifying structural landmarks, like the cafeteria or the playground gate. It's a high-energy, super memorable way to teach structural navigation. Next, we have layered nesting circles. This is such a brilliant way to visualize spatial scale for little minds. The kids create circles that get progressively bigger, starting with my bedroom, which they place inside my house, which sits inside my school, and finally all of that goes inside my town. It perfectly illustrates how small personal spaces fit inside much larger geographic zones. Our third tool is a fantastic adaptation from National Geographic called the bird's eye view. You literally just have the kids place a toy car on a table and ask them to look straight down on it from above. Then they draw exactly what that top-down perspective looks like. It seamlessly bridges the gap between a 3D physical object and a 2D map symbol, giving your students a foundational map-making skill in the most accessible way possible. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Anti-Bias, Equity, and Mapping. This is a really important safeguard. When we design these mapping activities, we have to be super mindful that the language we use validates where every single child lives. We really need to shift our focus away from mapping private properties and lean heavily into shared collective footprints. It's a subtle shift in lesson planning for sure, but it has a massive impact on keeping the classroom welcoming and safe for everyone. Let's make this crystal clear because it's absolutely crucial. If we prompt a kid to draw an isolated house with, say, a private backyard or an individual driveway, we are inadvertently alienating students who might live in apartments, multi-generational housing, or transitional shelters. So what's the fix? You hit it. Center your exercises on shared spaces, like a collective playground grid or the classroom layout itself. This ensures every child's reality is validated and everyone can fully participate without feeling left out. Which brings us to one final big question. How will your kids navigate their world tomorrow? By swapping out those confusing abstract concepts for real, physical literacy and shared spaces, you are literally giving young learners the confidence to step out into the world and safely say, "This is exactly how I fit into my space." Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope you can take these tools straight into your classroom.